International charity Oxfam says South Africa is emerging as an epicenter of hunger. The NGO warns a COVID-19 pandemic and the resultant lockdown have tipped millions over the edge. In a report, Oxfam says unemployment and loss of income have only deepened the country's food security crisis. About 15 million people in the country do not have access to food. We're joined to discuss this now by Oxfam South Africa's Mthandazo Ndlovu. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. So in putting all of this together, perhaps just give us details in terms of what goes into it and who exactly do you speak to?
Thank you so much for having us, and thank you and good afternoon to your viewers and listeners. Certainly, indeed, it has been a long process of putting together this report. And of course, part of it involves engaging various communities that we work with, and of course, also making reference to various authoritative pieces of research and reports such as the States SA, the various government, cabinet and president's reports, World Food Programme, United Nations. So it is quite a vast, diverse of sources of data that we kind of make reference to. And also Oxfam South Africa being a member of the South African National Vulnerability Assessment Committee, which is chaired by government and FAO. So these are some part of the institutions that we are part of. And of course, then the outcome, as you have mentioned in your opening remarks, it's saying over 13.7 million South Africans are facing hunger, and predominantly we're talking about people who are in the informal segments, people who are in the rural provinces, particularly KwaZulu-Natal, Eastern Cape and Limpopo. So it is indeed the final straw for millions of people who are already experiencing high levels of inequality, drought, climate change, etc. So indeed it is COVID-19 is exposing some of the weaknesses in the food systems and the failure thereof to regulate some of these value chains.
In your report, you note that 1 in every 2 persons in the Eastern Cape and 1 in every 3 persons in KwaZulu-Natal face hunger, especially in rural areas. Are these people who do not have access to land?
Predominantly, yes. Land is, of course, vital in terms of ensuring that there is access to farm produce and of course, access to food security for individual households, but as well for national food security as a country. We now heavily rely on the commercial farmers for food security, and there is unfortunately a relationship between commercial farmers and the supermarkets, particularly the huge multinational corporations who seem to be exercising undue influence over pricing, as we have seen in various reports published by Competition Commission of SA in terms of people inflating prices. And in this instance, even our numbers are quite at a lower range according to government's own sources of information data. They're expecting that the figure could be between 25.2% of the population which is unable to afford food. Human Sciences Research Council did point to that reality as well during the beginnings or the early starts of the lockdown measures. Yeah.
In your report, you note that one of the contributing factors is a lack of democratization in the food system, meaning?
Yes. Meaning, of course, the multinational corporations, they kind of have a role that they play in determining food prices and in destabilizing the role of the small to medium scale producers, smallholder farmers. So there isn't a fairness in the value systems and the value chain. So we're saying that must be looked at. The state must be able to play quite a central regulatory role in ensuring that this vital component, which is the right to food, is accessed by millions, if not billions, of the people across the world. But in South Africa, because it's enshrined in the Constitution, the issue of the right to food, such as the right to healthcare, the right to water.
What are some of the recommendations, some of the things that you note are quite concerning, especially the monopolization of the food industry?
Yeah, certainly we're saying, of course, in the first instance, there must be a particular response that is targeting provision of immediate food assistance to vulnerable groups and vulnerable population across the country and across the world, and investing in smallholder farmers and ensuring that procurements by governments, even during this time, do favor smallholder farmers, and also in ensuring that the systems and rules of trade and movement of crops also do favor smallholder farmers, not the multinational corporations. As we have seen, it is the access to food in South Africa is chiefly determined by access to cash, and mass majority of the people being retrenched as we speak. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Mthandazo Ndlovu, he speaks for Oxfam South Africa.